Beijing enjoys a history of over 3,000 years. It was China's capital during 6 dynasties and is home to more world cultural heritage treasures than any other city on the planet. But Beijing is not what we are talking about today. Instead, we are going to take a look at an operatic genre named after it called Peking opera. Why not Beijing opera? In the past, Westerners translated the city's name as Peking, so it was only natural, a century ago, to apply that term when translating the name of this musical art form. Peking opera enjoys a tremendous reputation in this huge country of 1.4 billion people. It is known as the nation's opera. The history of Peking opera goes back more than a century. Still, that's relatively recent in this ancient country. With its large territory and multiple ethnicities, China has produced more than 360 forms of local opera. In other words, it would take nearly an entire year to watch all of them if you watched one a day. So what has made Peking opera stand out among all others? Central to answering this question is the influence of one person, Lanfang.
He was the founder of the Lanfang School of Peking opera. It's considered a major milestone in the development of Chinese Peking opera. There are so many legends about him over the past century. His story has been told again and again in films, literary works, and documentaries. How did he become a great master of Peking opera during this era? How many unusual secrets and dusty memories are still hidden in his wonderful life? (1901) was a turbulent year in Chinese history. The emperor had fled from the Forbidden City, leaving the imperial palace as fragile and empty as a failing heart. The Qing Empire was in a precarious game with the outside world and had no bargaining chips. Outside the imperial city, in a small courtyard near Baishun Alley, a boy learning Chinese opera would soon undergo a storm in his life. The boy's name is Mei Lan. At the time, he was 7 years old. Since his family declined and couldn't afford a family tutor, he was sent to his relative's home to learn opera. However, after learning for 4 months, he couldn't even sing a complete part of opera because he was too playful. Infuriated, his relative sent him back. He thought this lazy boy with little talent would go nowhere in the future. No one could have imagined that years later he would become the world-famous Peking opera master, Lanfang. In 1894, Lanfang was born in Beijing to a family of Peking opera performers. His grandfather, Mei Chaoling, is one of the 13 founders of Peking opera. His uncle, Mei Utian, was a famous musician in the Tanxin Pei troupe. He was known for being proficient in all kinds of Peking opera musical instruments. His father, Mei Jufen, was once a top Dan artist. Unfortunately, he passed away in 1898 when Mei Lan was 4. Losing his father and being the only boy in the family, Mei Lan was seen as heir to the family trade. Mei Lan began to learn Peking opera at age 7. Unexpectedly, he had a rough start. He had only a few days of training before his teacher left in anger. Worse still, even his uncles believed Mei Lan had no gift for Peking opera. In their eyes, Mei Lan was not clever enough. He was ordinary looking, had stiff facial expressions, and was a little nearsighted. He looked a bit slow and dull. His aunt, Lady Qin, described Mei Lan as ineloquent and plain-looking. It's hard to imagine today how much of a disappointment young Mei Lanfang was, believing he had no talent in Peking opera. This brought the family into decline. The turning point of his life was marked by his encounter with a master. This is Wu Lingxian, a famous artist of Peking opera in the late Qing dynasty. He was a friend to the Mei family because of Mei Lan's grandfather, Mei Chaoling.
梅巧玲，她四喜班的头嘛，他们家对人比较好。吴令先大概家里边有一个什么很大的困难，愁眉不解。后来知道他家里边出事了，需要钱。那个梅巧玲大概是很得体的，说是哎，林先啊，有个槟榔果啊，你接着啊，扔过去。揭开来一看，里边大概是一张银票，解决了他的燃眉之急。
At that time, troop members were often paid with fixed salaries. However, Mei Chaoling was generous and compassionate. He often provided special allowances and timely financial support to the members based on their family environment, economic situations, various circumstances, and needs. Decades later, Wu Lingxian was still grateful to Mei Chaoling for his kind help. In 1902, he officially took 8-year-old Mei Lan as an apprentice and became Mei Lan's artistic mentor in the true sense. Mei Lan's life entered a new phase, having such a good teacher at the beginning of his career. Since then, under guidance of Master Wu, Mei Lan gradually perfected the craft and embarked on a long journey of an artist's life. Fortunately, Wu Lingxian was against physical punishment to students. He knew that children were often restless and active. Whenever he found a student impatient with singing, he would stop the singing class and begin training of other basic skills like physical movements on stage. When the student is tired, he would resume the singing class. Many years later, Mei Lanfang recalled his apprenticeship life in his memoirs. Sometimes I was tired, and as I kept on humming, my eyelids were so heavy that I couldn't help but take a quick nap. He always gave me a nudge to wake me up and concentrate on my studies. He was such an open-minded teacher. If I was in another teacher's class, my hand would have been hit with a wooden ruler already. Under kind, elaborate, and careful guidance of Wu, young Mei Lan gradually walked out of the psychological shadow of being branded as not born for this art. He has set his mind on Peking opera.
There are 4 subjects a performer must master in Peking opera: singing, monologues and dialogues, acting, and martial arts. And there are also 5 types of skills required: hand, eyes, body, and foot techniques, along with the rules governing them. Even the most famous performer has to practice every day. The most familiar saying among Peking opera performers goes, "One day without practice, only you will know. 2 days, your master will know. 3 days, your audience will know." It's an admonition they always keep in mind. Why are they so strict with themselves? I believe it stems from the rigid format of the performances and the rigorous requirements for every note, every line, every movement. Through the 4 subjects and the 5 skills, the performers master the highly formatted techniques and rules essential to each performance.
Today, in many traditional Chinese opera schools, Peking opera is a popular major. These children attend school between 11 to 12 years old and graduate after 6 years of professional training. While learning traditional Chinese opera was no longer as tough as in the old days, the length of schooling and the teaching method of combining singing and theoretical education together are legacies from the old-style Chinese opera schools that were around when Mei Lanfang was young. In 1907, Mei Lanfang entered the most famous Chinese opera troupe in Beijing, the Xi Liancheng Troupe, and officially began his professional career as an opera artist.
梅兰芳呢，这是笨鸟先生，比人家花了加倍的力量来学，死学苦学。
所以他练功比别人更苦，学习比别人更认真，基础就比别人更扎实。
At that time, however, Mei Lanfang wasn't the only hard-working Peking opera student. How come his achievements went far beyond the reach of any others? Many years later, in his memoirs, Mei Lanfang revealed his secret to his success. When I was in the Xi Liancheng troupe, I went there every day before performances began and stayed until they were over. Except for my performance time, I sat backstage and watched every show. I was so obsessed with it that I wouldn't leave for 1 second. With time passing by, my acting skills improved by themselves. I felt more at ease on stage with every tune and movement. Either it's a happy scene or a sad one, and naturally they correlate to every beat. And what's harder to come by is during that time, Mei Lanfang watched performances of the best Peking opera performers of the time, such as Tan Shin-pei, Yang Xiaolo, Wang Yaoqing, Gong Yunpu, Huang Yunfu, Jin Shoushan, and so on. Female characters performed by Mei Lan had bright and charming eyes, expressing amorously tender feelings in their graceful manners. As an old saying goes among Peking opera artists, greatness cannot be achieved without obsession. Through careful observance, hard practice, and fully devoted studies day after day, the ineloquent and plain-looking young man quietly invigorated his potential talents. By constantly improving himself, his amazing charm began to show. In 1908, the founder of the Xi Liancheng troupe, Niu Zihao, said confidently that this young man will succeed in the future, and so gave him a stage name, Mei Lanfang. Since then, the name has accompanied him for the rest of his life, across China and the world. To Mei Lanfang, 1911 was a memorable year. This year, with the outbreak of the Xinhai Revolution, China ushered in a huge change, unprecedented in the last 3,000 years. This year, Mei Lanfang's first child was born, a new member to the Mei family. Also this year, with the premiere of Spring of the Jade Hall, Mei Lanfang became a popular Peking opera star in Beijing, to the credit of his uncle, Mei Utian. Peking opera, Spring of the Jade Hall, tells a story of Su San, a prostitute in the Ming Dynasty, falsely accused of and imprisoned for murder. She was eventually vindicated and married to her true love. Spring of the Jade Hall is one of the most popular traditional Chinese operas. But this time, Mei Lanfang portrayed a different Su San.
有一次，梅雨田说他听了一个票友叫林继红，把这个《玉堂春》的唱腔全改了，唱腔改得很好听。说你肯不肯原来学的东西改掉，你听他的。梅兰芳同意他伯父的建议，就按照林继红设计的一个票友设计的唱腔，去唱了这个《玉堂春》。
After many years, that premiere remained fresh in Mei Lanfang's memories. He recalled, "I've just gone off stage when I heard thunderous applauses." Soon Mei Lanfang found there was neither a singer nor a narrator on stage. It gave space for his uncle's melodious Hu Qin music.
梅兰芳那个时候是他的伯父梅雨田给他操琴，伴奏呢是随着唱腔来的，唱腔改变了，伴奏一定是改变。 梅雨天呢又是一个大师级的一个伴奏家、音乐家，然后呢他就显得就比原来的要清新、委婉、好听，有很多新意。
Mei Yu-tian was excited by the audience's cheers. He promptly made more changes to the tune and won unceasing applause. When I came on stage once again, the audience's emotions were already in high spirits. The tunes I sang sound fresh and paralleled the Hu Qin accompaniment harmoniously. They applauded almost every time I finished a line, Mei Lanfang said. Such an atmosphere continued into the full play.
梅兰芳自己的演唱特色，从《玉堂春》这个时候就开始了。后来他自己凡是自己的腔，他自己就有自己的一种唱法，修改、前进、完善、美化。《玉堂春》的意义就在这儿。
This photo was taken the following year after the premiere of Spring of the Jade Hall. On the eve of a new era, Mei Lanfang paid a special visit to a studio and had this symbolic moment captured. Shanghai, one of the most international trading ports in modern China, is known as the fashion capital of the East. Since 100 years ago, in addition to a wide variety of foreign cultures, the Shanghai-style Peking opera, with rich commercial elements, was also booming. In the late Qing dynasty, Tan Xinpei and other opera stars from the north made frequent performance tours to the south and gained much popularity there. Shanghai gradually became an important center of Peking opera, like Beijing. In October 1913, for the first time in his life, Mei Lanfang left Beijing for Shanghai with Wang Fengqing, an old male role performer.
他是作为王凤卿的配角过去的，也就按照京剧行里说，叫给王佩卿挎刀。
当时王凤卿那个是大红啊，梅兰芳还是很嫩。
王凤卿的包年那一期大概1个月多一点吧，他3800两银子，那时候梅兰芳是1800银元，就那个价钱。
Mei Lanfang later recalled, he was offered only 1,400 silver taels at first, but Wang Fengqing pressed the organizers to increase his payment. Finally, they made a concession. This little episode made Mei Lanfang begin to feel the pressure of big Shanghai. A big surprise to the theater owner, this young Peking opera artist, with a good appearance and brilliant singing skills, was loved by audiences in Shanghai since his first debut in Colored Mansion Romance. The first 3 days of performance went surprisingly well. At this time, Wang Fengqing made a bold suggestion to the theater owner. He was willing to act as a support role to Mei Lanfang in Shanghai. As a routine, the best Peking opera shows are always saved to the end, in case the audiences leave too early, and to help raising audiences' anticipation. The grand finale is undoubtedly the most important show. Mei Lanfang realized that a real test was coming.
他认为再是抱着肚子唱可能不行了。
就是说，怎么让上海观众喜欢，能把观众压住这个台。
就在用了一个星期的时间，排出一出木刻寨，枪挑木天王，又打的。
On November 16th, 1913, the audience in Shanghai's Dan Gui Theater witnessed the birth of another classic character in the history of Chinese opera. A year before, they had just honored Tan Xinpei as the king of opera performances. Now they are fascinated with the enchanting poise and charm of a young Dan performer, who was also skilled in playing roles of Qing Yi, verdant-robed girls, Hua Dan, young female roles, and Dao Ma Dan, female warrior roles.
上海人发疯了，这么一个就知道抱着肚子唱的人，居然就还打了，居然又抢亲了，抢亲以后啊又闹事儿，把她老公公都拉下马来，那种很有故事性。
他真正大红大紫就是从上海演出开始，那从上海回来以后，那他的影响就一发而不可收。
40 years later, Mei Lanfang still clearly remembered the premiere of Mu Kua Jai. On this day, he caught up with the pace of the time again.
他站在一个新旧文化一个交汇处，梅兰芳先生站这个点呢，站得非常准。
因为在此之前，旦行的演员在京剧界的地位一直不如老生那么高，老生一直是挑着京剧的大梁。1913年的梅兰芳的上海演出，我们可以看成京剧史上从以生行为主到生旦并重的时期的一个转折点。
Ho Zhi Li Xin is an idiom I learned recently. It means out with the old and in with the new. The Chinese like using idioms because they are short but expressive. This particular idiom reflects an important turning point in the history of Peking opera. In the early 20th century, Western culture was gradually entering China and influencing younger people, especially after the May 4th movement in 1919. Peking opera could not separate itself from this revolutionary age. The only way it could survive was to rid itself of restrictions that went hand in hand with old plays and to meet the aesthetic expectations of younger audiences. As a young man, Mei Lanfang realized this and reworked Peking opera in terms of singing, acting, costumes, makeup, choreography, and stage effects. His comprehensive reforms helped Peking opera to reach a new peak of grace and beauty.
In this photo are bankers, university professors, newspaper editors, playwrights, and theater critics. Many of them stood at the side of Mei Lanfang in the following decades, advising him and helping him to perfect his skills. Later, these super fans of Mei Lanfang were affectionately referred to as the May Party.
每党从各个不同的方面都对梅兰芳产生巨大的影响。他们是从晚清过来的一批重要的文人，这一批文人都很有社会地位、社会影响，他们全心全力的来辅佐梅兰芳，给梅兰芳以各种各样的支持。
Close friendship between literati and Peking opera artists is a unique social phenomenon at the end of the Qing dynasty, when social changes were taking place. Perhaps the existence of these literati had a subtle influence on Mei Lanfang's thoughts, vision, and mind. After the second show in Shanghai, he immediately launched a series of innovative experiments. In the early 1920s, the house near Qingyun Alley was known as the Reed Garden. It's said that after Mei Lanfang bought this 20-room courtyard house in 1916, for more than 2,000 silver taels, he created new modern costume Chinese opera performances here with the May Party. Shortly after he returned to Beijing from Shanghai, Mei Lanfang adapted and rehearsed a modern costume Peking opera, The Waves of the Vicious Sea. After his second tour in Shanghai, he adapted and played in 3 modern costumed Peking opera performances based on true stories, Tides of Officialdom, Deng Sha Gu, and A Wisp of Hemp. All of them were blockbusters.
但是他唱了大概是6年到7年的时候，很红啊，梅兰芳突然不唱了。后来我听他讲过一句话，就说这个戏这个手没地方搁。这句话是一个很普通的话，可是非常的深刻，因为京剧是靠程式作为基本的内容。这个现代戏没有程式，整个京剧的程式都不能用了。
青年时期的梅兰芳做各种各样的尝试，尝试完了发现走不通，回头走回来，这才是他最可贵的地方。
actually while rehearsing modern costume Peking opera. Mei Lanfang also set his eyes on a declining ancient Chinese opera, Guanchu opera. Mei Lanfang said, "I think the value of Guanchu opera is in how we introduce its beautiful physical movements into Peking opera." From 1914 to 1916, Mei Lanfang learned dozens of Guanchu opera performances from senior Peking opera masters such as Chao Huilan, Li Shoushan, and Chen Duolin, making Guanchu opera popular again in Beijing.
我父亲跟我说，京剧过去老先生没什么身段，主要是听嗓子，连扮演都其次，大方脸，那个你没什么可看的。
他重新学了昆曲，才意识到什么样的表演、什么样的题材最能够表达京剧的美学精神，才能够达到表演艺术的极致。因此，他不断的往回走，而不断的把自己的基础打得越来越扎实。
In August 1915, with a more solid foundation, Mei Lanfang wrote and performed a new ancient costume Peking opera, Goddess Chang'ua Flying to the Moon. The new show was to celebrate the Mid-Autumn Festival. Mei Lanfang absorbed Guanchu opera's feature of combining singing with physical movements. He also redesigned Goddess Chang'ua's clothing and hairstyle based on ancient paintings of maidens. Mei Lanfang said, "No one in Chinese opera circles had ever walked in this way before. I have made up my mind to boldly give it a try."
传统京剧，它的服饰是根据明代的服装作为规范形成的一套装扮，但是梅兰芳这个古着戏呢，是按照历史上真实存在过的这种服装来扮演古代的人物啊。直到现在，我们新编的历史剧里面的，还是采取了这个路子。
These paintings display the Hualian dance that Mei Lanfang designed for Chang'ua. Goddess Chang'ua, Flying to the Moon, premiered at the end of October that year in the Auspicious Theater in Beijing. Its beautiful singing style, novel costumes, and joyous dancing were a great success on stage. Since then, Mei Lanfang and scholars of the Mei Party created a series of new ancient costumed operas based on traditional cultural classics. They extracted the essence from Guanchu opera, classical Chinese paintings, and the art of sculpting and dancing. They gave people a brand new impression on traditional Peking opera, while preserving its traditional style. Audiences therefore gradually shifted from listening to traditional Chinese opera to watching it.
这一时期，梅兰芳取得了巨大的成就，融合了花旦甚至刀马旦的一些特征，开创了一系列的舞蹈，彻底的改变了京剧旦角的表演风格。
他开始走一条凸显古典美的一个道路，这是他成为大师的一个关键。
艺术也成熟了，作品也出来了，而是人呢，又是20岁出头一点点，就这样的人也特别漂亮。这段时间应该是说梅兰芳鼎盛了，真正红了。
This is the bustling Jinbao Street in Beijing, where many large mansions were once located. The most well-known one is Mei Lanfang's former residence, at number 5 in the Wuliang Daren Alley. This courtyard house, with rockery and corridors, marks the peak of Mei Lanfang's flourishing career. At that time, China was in a turbulent age. On the one hand, under the influence of the May 4th movement and the New Culture movement in 1919, Chinese opera, as a symbol of feudal ethical codes, was severely criticized and questioned. On the other hand, talented artists of Peking opera were thriving. Motivated by May Lanfang, many Peking opera artists created new singing styles and new shows. Newspapers and musical records spread the art even further, pushing Peking opera to new unprecedented heights. From 1923 to 1928, May Lanfang already stood firmly in the forefront of history. He had adapted many old traditional operas and created 8 ancient costumed operas. On the road to becoming a master of a generation, what we see in May Lanfang is a relentless entrepreneurial spirit, an uncompromising heart determined not to drift along.
无论是新编的古装戏啊，以及他改编的老戏啊，都有他非常系统的前进的一种想法，然后用自己的审美理想摆进去，个性摆进去，所以这样的话呢，这个梅派真正梅派出来了，一种表演样式出来了。
May School, the earliest and most influential style of Dan performance in the history of Peking opera, is known for its mixture of smooth singing, narration, and elaborate dancing movements. Its sumptuous, elegant, and peaceful charisma elevated the art of Peking opera to a new level that suits both refined and popular tastes. As early as in 1915, the American envoy to China, Paul Reinsch, fell in love with Peking opera and became a fan of May Lanfang, after by chance he watched goddess Chang'e flying to the moon. Watching May's opera then became a fashionable trend among foreigners in China. During the 1920s and 1930s, May Lanfang met and entertained many foreign envoys and literary celebrities at his former residence. May Lanfang became a voluntary diplomat to the national government, based on incomplete statistics. During that period, May Lanfang hosted more than 80 banquets in his residence and received 6,000 to 7,000 visiting foreigners.
到30年的时候，北京的旅游口号是游长城、观梅剧，都要去梅府看一看。他们家那么多保姆，跟梅兰芳讲大爷，咱们家要给那些人吃穷了。梅兰芳笑笑而已。
With such extensive social connections, May Lanfang felt it was about time to introduce Peking opera to the West. However, in the era when a gap was still blocking China from the West, it was destined to be an adventure. In the late spring of 1929, a middle-aged man walked hurriedly into the Bank of China headquarters on Hankou Road in Shanghai. His name is Alfred Saukazi, the national government's envoy to the United States. He came to visit Feng Gangguang, president of the Bank of China, to ask him to stop May Lanfang from visiting the United States. In letters from Feng Gangguang, addressed to Qi Rushan and others, he expressed concerns about May Lanfang's performance tour to the United States, which represented many public opinions back then. In addition, he was worried that it would undermine China's national prestige. May Lanfang was always humble and gentle, but this time he was very determined. He said, "I am going to the States, even at the cost of my entire fortune." In the bigger world of art, the master's concern is far beyond personal success or failure. A year earlier, the Chinese Institute in America, founded by John Stewart, John Dewey, Hu Shua, and other Chinese and American scholars, officially invited May Lanfang to perform in America. May Lanfang and his friends began to make meticulous preparations.
为了使美国人能够看懂梅兰芳的演出，陈如山就找了美术界的 一些朋友，把梅兰芳演出的服饰、道具、乐器全部的画下来，大概画了2000多幅，而且配上了中文、英文、德文3种文字。
尤其值得提的，梅兰芳先生啊，请了当时的北大教授这个刘廷华先生，把京剧曲谱第一次翻译成五线谱，是拿去一看就知道京剧的旋律究竟怎么样。
Mei Lanfang managed to borrow and raise 100,000 yuan and was ready to set off from Shanghai when he received 2 urgent telegrams from the States. An economic crisis is going on. Please postpone your visit. And if you insist, please take enough money with you. In the face of a sudden change, Mei Lanfang showed absolute determination and courage. He tore up the telegrams and boarded the ship Empress of Canada on January 18, 1930, on schedule. Later, Mei Lanfang's wide social connections began to show surprising strength, soon making his visit a grand event of culture and arts exchange between China and the United States. American politicians, scholars, theatrical artists, and overseas Chinese organized various forms of receptions and tea parties for him. A founding council was set up, led by the wife of former President Woodrow Wilson, to promote and publicize the art of Mei Lanfang in America. February 16, 1930, is a big day in the history of Chinese opera. On this day, Mei Lanfang made a debut of his first official performance in the 49th Street Theater on Broadway, New York City. To help the audience comprehend his shows, before his performance, Mei Lanfang invited Yong Su, an overseas Chinese student, to give a brief introduction of the show and styles of Peking opera performance in English. Surprisingly, Mei Lanfang's Chinese opera performances gained overwhelming positive responses from the American audience since the first show of the Fen River Bay. During the 2-hour show, Mei Lanfang had to repeatedly answer curtain calls between acts.
看完戏以后，美国人不走了，要等他谢幕。后来谢幕戏15次都不走，还得要排队上台跟他参手。那是一双什么样的手？他们要看一看。那么排队排过的人重新再加入队伍又排，所以一直搞到4点多。
It's said that the United States accepted Mei Lanfang and his performances as if overnight. This is a nearly perfect performance tour. To honor Mei Lanfang's outstanding artistic achievements, the Pomona College in LA and the University of Southern California awarded him honorary doctorate degrees in literature.
从未有一个中国的表演艺术家在美国受到那么多的欢迎。梅兰芳不仅是京剧艺术达到顶峰的一个标志性的人物，同时还要让世界分享这份伟大的艺术。我觉得这才是梅兰芳最伟大的地方。
According to historians, there are 3 major forms of ancient theater, namely ancient Greek theater, Indian Sanskrit theater, and Chinese theater. Ancient Greek theater came into being in the 6th century BC and declined just over 200 years later. The origins of Indian Sanskrit theater are untraceable, since it has long been a cultural relic. Chinese theater is the youngest. It wasn't performed formally on stage until the 11th century, but it soon became the most popular of all genres of Chinese opera. That's because it absorbed the best aspects of other forms of artistic expression, including singing, dancing, martial arts, and other stage arts.
This photo was taken in Shanghai on June 6, 1931. It recorded a Peking opera show starring 4 of the most well-known dance artists of the time. This year, Shanghai's Theater Monthly organized a vote to select the best stand performer from Mei Lanfang, Sheng Xiaoyun, Cheng Yanchou, and Shun Hui Sheng. Mei Lanfang topped the list. The Mukden incident in 1931 opened the prologue of Japanese aggression against China. In the following year, Mei Lanfang and his family moved southward and settled in Shanghai. In the following few years, he created 2 new Chinese opera shows, The Fight Against Jin Troops and Regrets of Life and Death. He was trying to motivate public morale to fight against the enemies through a historical story of the Song Empire's fight against the Jin state. However, as the outbreak of the Sino-Japanese War in 1937 and the Pacific War, Mei Lanfang and his family moved to Hong Kong and then returned to Shanghai in 1942. The Japanese wanted to make use of Mei Lanfang's musical influence and international reputation as king of opera performance. They pressed him hard to sing peace-themed opera in the name of goodwill. Mei Lanfang resolutely stopped shaving and took ultra-high doses of thyroid vaccine to hurt himself, and locked himself at home, refusing to perform. During this period, Mei Lanfang had no other way to ease his mental anguish but to paint. He learned to paint at the age of 20, and the art of painting had been inspiring his performance for the last few decades. Now that he was away from the stage, at one point, he even had to rely on holding painting exhibitions to maintain the livelihood of his family. The difficult days lasted until August 15, 1945, when the Japanese declared unconditional surrender to China.
可是那天大家都找不着梅兰芳，课堂里边有好多人就等，呀，这大爷哪里去了？后来梅兰芳缓缓地从那个楼梯上下来，拿一把扇子遮住自己的脸，就露了2个眼睛，都一步下来，大家都感觉到很奇怪，梅兰芳怎么着，像出台的要表演的样子啊，都很惊奇。他走到那个人的中间，唰一下子把这个扇子拿掉，胡子没有了，剃得干干净净。
On October 10th, Mei Lanfang performed a Guanchu opera, Sweet Dream in the Garden, in the Majestic Theater in Shanghai. Audiences were thrilled at the return of the king of opera performance. Mei Lanfang was excited too. He said in an article in the Huanhui newspaper that I can still sing. This is a Chinese opera film, Regrets of Life and Death, starring Mei Lanfang, in the second year of his return. It's the first color film in China. Although due to the film's age, the film's original color has faded. However, the master's elegant demeanor is still clearly seen. As a master of art, he put national interest in front of his own. He showed great courage and integrity in the face of danger and intense pressures. His retirement and return demonstrated the Chinese spirit. Looking back on the days away from the stage, Mei Lanfang said, in the artistic career of an actor, especially at my age, 8 years of blankness is a huge loss that can never be compensated for. At this time, he found that his voice was not as good as it used to be. Yet seeing his peers still living in poverty after the war, he kept on with recovery training and performances. It's said that Mei Lanfang always prioritized art, brotherhood, and family above himself. He had hundreds of people to support, and he felt responsible for them. His integrity, sense of responsibility, chivalrous spirit, and pure mind in the world of art constitutes Mei Lanfang's personal charisma as a great opera master. Peking opera, Lady General Mu Takes Command, was composed in 1959. After watching famous Yu opera performer Ma Jinfeng playing Lady General Mu Takes Command, Mei Lanfang grew the idea of adapting it into a Peking opera show as a gift to China for its 10th anniversary.
我们都去看了，看了以后，梅兰芳就讲了一句话：我演了一辈子的穆桂英，都是年轻的，老的我都还没真演过。那么就来一个老的试试看吧。
这件事情啊，其实难度是非常大、非常大的。所以梅先生在这个加工、改编、挂帅的时候，他有很多很多艺术处理，从而形成了穆桂英挂帅独特的艺术魅力。
Lady General Mu Takes Command is the last new Chinese opera in Mei Lanfang's life. With inspiring contents and perfect artistic qualities, it marks a glorious zenith of Mei Lanfang's life and his artistic achievements. This photo was taken on May 31st, 1961, after Mei Lanfang performed Lady General Mu Takes Command for the Chinese Academy of Sciences. At that time, no one would have ever thought that this would be the last song people heard from the Peking opera master. Soon, Mei Lanfang begins to feel pains in his chest and abdomen, and they grew worse.
他说他胃老疼，我吃不下饭，其实他是心绞疼，这就不知是心脏病。
他没想到自己会死，因为他已经要到新疆去演出的，所有的箱子、所有的礼物、所有等等等等都全部都准备好了，要去新疆了。
因为他身体老是挺好的，这就不在乎了。这个心脏不好，不能多动。
At the end of July, Mei Lanfang had a sudden attack of angina and was sent to the Beijing Fuhuai Hospital for first aid. He was then diagnosed with having an acute coronary artery infraction, complicated with acute left heart failure. On hearing the news on August 4th, former Premier Zhou Enlai rushed to see Mei Lanfang. He asked Mei Lanfang to follow the doctor's orders and not to worry about his performances. After his recovery, he could perform wherever he wanted. However, the Peking opera master never made it out of the ward. At 4:45 a.m. on August 8, 1961, Mei Lanfang had a sudden cardiac arrest and died at the age of 67 after the resuscitation failed.
那个时候是下半旗了，我们陈毅副总理来主持那个追悼会的。据我知道，陈毅副总理说了一句话，他说：“人无完人，可是梅兰芳是我们中国的一代完人。”
A perfect man of this generation is probably the highest evaluation a person can receive. In fact, Mei Lanfang made a summary of his life in his plain, sincere, but wise words to the young people as early as 1955.
热爱你的工作，老老实实地从事学习，努力艺术实践，不断地劳动，不断地锻炼，不断地创造，不断地虚心接受群众的意见，严格的进行。
Some people say Mei Lanfang was a creator of beauty on stage. Others claim he himself was the embodiment of beauty and a masterpiece made by God. To many, his name is a synonym for Peking opera. Today, Peking opera is performed all over the world. It's safe to say that wherever there are Chinese people, there's Peking opera. What's more, people of different nationalities and ethnicity have come to China in order to learn about and even perform Peking opera.